By this point, we're pretty much all familiar with United's Polaris business class product, mostly found on their wide-body aircraft. However, there is one single aircraft type they have that's narrow-body and has a Polaris business class. That's the 757-200, and today we are at Newark Liberty International Airport, one of United's largest hubs, to get on board the world's longest 757 flight in this special United Polaris class that looks a little bit different than what you know and love. Now, the Newark Airport has three terminals. Terminal A, where we are right now, which is home to most of the domestic and Canadian arrivals and departures. It was actually renovated and opened earlier this year, however it's the only terminal not directly connected to the AirTrain, as it's a short 10 to 15 minute walk to the AirTrain station, or you can take the bus that's located in the lower level. A short bus ride away we reach Terminal B, which is currently for pretty much all international flights that are not United. At this point, United has become large enough here that some of those flights do bleed into Terminal B, and there is a small section of domestic flights, but essentially if you're flying into Newark on a non-United international flight, there's a good chance you end up here at Terminal B. From there, we hop on the AirTrain, which will take us to our terminal. It also connects to the other terminals, as well as connecting to a couple of parking garages and the transit center, so that you can get on any New Jersey Transit or Amtrak train. Finally, however, we reach Terminal C, which is home to United and only United. Therefore, it's where we will be flying out of today. Now, Terminal C's check-in areas are located on two levels. The upper level being the Premier check-in, that's where we are here. First thing you're going to see inside the door is the Global Reception Office there. That's for their Global Services members only, which is their highest level and invite-only level of status. Past that, we find the Premier 1K and Polaris check-in, as well as the Premier Access check-in for all other status members. And if we leave our area upstairs with the vaulted ceilings, we head down to the Economy Class check-in, which is located on the level directly underneath. A little bit less ornate than what you find upstairs and a little bit more busy, but it is a ginormous check-in area. Security lines at Newark can get crazy. With clear and pre-check, however, I was able to get through security in about 5 minutes though. Now, I will say Newark Airport gets a ton of hate, from myself included. However, one of the main things that it excels in is it probably has one of the best views of the Manhattan skyline as compared to the other New York airports, at least directly from the airport terminal. Newark is United's third largest hub by passenger count, clocking in at just under 14 million passengers annually, so you can see the sheer amount of departures listed here on the departure board. These are only United and a couple select partner flights, considering that all of the partner flights would depart out of a different terminal. Terminal C at Newark has 3 United lounges, one United Club that was just renovated, one United Club that's being renovated and has a pop-up lounge next to it temporarily, and the famous United's Polaris Lounge that's at a lot of their hubs. Now, the northernmost wing at Newark Airport has 20 gates, and it's used mostly for international flights. However, it's also used almost exclusively for wide-body aircraft just because the ramp is a little bigger, the gates are a little bigger, and so it makes for an easier exchange of aircraft passing by. Since we are on a narrow-body aircraft across the ocean, we actually were not in this wing. But what is located in this wing is the United Club that's open and newly renovated. If you do want to see what it looks like inside, go check out my United inaugural to Dubai where we got to take a look at that. United Clubs are used for any passengers that hold Star Alliance privileges on an international ticket or members. We have access today to the United Polaris Lounge, which is famously known for being exclusive to get into, as you have to be on a business class ticket on an international qualifying flight on a Star Alliance carrier, making it a little bit tougher to get in. I was excited to see this since I've only ever seen the one in San Francisco, so that's my main comparison. The nice thing about United Polaris lounges is they are all fairly similar. They all have the same walls, floors, and lighting. They all have the same seating options, they're just organized a little bit differently. What I will say, however, on first impressions is that this lounge seems to be much smaller than the Polaris Lounge in San Francisco. If you haven't seen the San Francisco lounge, go check out my United video on my United Flight number 1 from San Francisco to Singapore, where you can see what that lounge looks like, and it's 2 stories. Newark does still have the same amenities, however, with workspaces, shower suites, and quiet rooms. They do have plenty of space for eating if you do want to grab some food and sit at one of those tables. However, what United is possibly most famous for in their Polaris lounges is having the sit-down option that isn't always available in a lot of these airport lounges. Now, from the time that I spent in this lounge, what I will say is it seems like most people dine here in the central buffet area. This is mostly because it's pretty easy to walk up, grab what you want, and then take it back to your seat, whereas most people don't want that sit-down dining experience. There is a great selection of food, in my opinion, inspired by all the different regions that they fly to, with some Indian options, some African options, as well as some Asian options. You can truly make it your own with salad and healthy sandwich options, all the way to the overly indulgent dessert options that they have as well. If you do want to join them for a sit-down service, however, you can see the menu here that's provided with those eating in the dining room. Maybe you're not hungry and you just want a drink, or maybe to watch some sports. The good news is Polaris lounges all have a bar with bar top seating and tables surrounding them. What I do like about United's Polaris lounges is that they have a variety of seating. They have plenty of spaces for solo travelers. They also have plenty of spaces for group travelers. One of the best things about the seating options they have, however, is that almost every seat is at or near a power outlet, so that there's plenty of spaces to charge your devices. I grabbed one of these workspace seats here that comes with universal charging ports and USB charging ports. Not to mention the great views that you have from the seats that border up against the window. Because I was expecting at least one meal on my flight, I decided to take it easy. I had a healthy sandwich and a salad where I definitely went overboard on the onions, grabbed a seat, charged my devices, and waited to head out to my departure gate. I did want to take a shower prior to getting on board this 9-hour flight. However, the lady at the counter for the shower suites advised me that it would be over a 2-hour wait for the next shower suite. So, I decided I could suffer about 9 hours and instead decided to make my way out to my boarding gate since, like I mentioned, it was a little bit further away and I needed to allow myself enough time to walk out there. We were off to the southernmost and largest of the wings that make up the C gates. This one's home to a total of 30 boarding gates. It also houses the inter-terminal transfer shuttles to terminals A and B, as the only way to get between terminals inside security is by bus, and you can only do that if you have a boarding pass for a flight in one of those terminals. This wing sports the older style of Terminal C here at Newark, but you still have some things to do, like the pianos that you'll find throughout Newark for customers to come play. You'll also find a large dining area for all passengers to access, known as the Global Bazaar. Inside the Global Bazaar, you'll find an assortment of shops for restaurants, for snacks, for books, for whatever you could need to occupy yourself before and during your flight. In addition, up above you'll see the United Club. We did get to access that before they closed it for renovation, but this is going to be the United Club that reopens brand new, hopefully later this year or maybe early next year. Through the Global Bazaar, we reach gate C80, which is going to play home to our flight today to Stockholm on the 757-200. Now, we've talked a lot, obviously, about these narrow-body transatlantic flights in the past weeks, but what I do like about them is that because they have less passengers, even though it's an international flight, they can clean the aircraft pretty quickly, and they can especially board it very quickly. We also talked about the charging access inside the lounge. You can also see just how many seating options with charging options there are just in the boarding area alone. Now, obviously, the 757 is not the flagship product by any means, but United and Delta are using them until new planes arrive. For example, United has 50 A321 XLRs on order set to begin arriving next year when they plan to retire these or at least move them to more domestic routes. Delta also has 100 737 MAX 10s on order that will presumably replace their 757s. Unfortunately, our flight did end up being delayed because the crew wasn't here in time. I heard them talking about the location of the crew parking and the poor timing of the employee shuttles, so I guess Newark's bad placement and organization just happens to affect everyone. In the meantime, though, now that we're finally getting on board, I was excited to see what the 757 Polaris Business Class looks like on this United aircraft. Now with a 2-2 setup, it may not have the same face value that you'll find on the wide-body Polaris products. The plane may not be the nicest and it may look and feel a bit old, but flying the 757 is just fun, man, and especially lie-flat seats on a narrow-body airplane, it's all just fun. And, surprisingly, the seats are only 1 inch narrower than the 777 Polaris seats, and an inch wider than the 767 Polaris seats. The seat is also made of the same fabric that you'll find on the mainstream Polaris seats, which in my opinion is the most comfortable business class seat you'll find on a US product. In addition, I suggest getting row 1 if you can, as the footwells are just a little bit bigger and still offer a little bit of storage for backpacks. We also, of course, have the mountain of amenities that come with every Polaris seat, and we will take a little bit more of a look at those shortly, in addition to the brand new amenity kits that they just started handing out. In the meantime, though, I wanted to take a look around the seat. Starting off, there is a little bit of a privacy partition between you and your seat neighbor, and the seats are slightly offset to give you a little bit more privacy. Just below that, we find the armrest and the seatback literature pocket, which has 2 pockets, one for whatever you brought on board and one for the normal seatback literature, which included 4 menu cards. Now, I know aircraft coming in and out of Newark tend to be delayed quite often, but it just makes me wonder how often they're actually cleaning these seats, as I saw these cards pretty much as soon as I saw that pocket. In front of that is the remote for the seatback TV, which has a button to pop out, although unfortunately it looks like whoever put this away kind of jammed it in there, so this cable was sticking out, and it made my remote unable to remove from that socket. You'll also find a countertop in between you and your seatmate, which actually does have plenty of space for each of you to use it. On the side of that is where you'll find the buttons for the seat controls, where it has a preset for fully sitting and fully lying, and then you can adjust each piece individually. The tray table, located right along the side of that center console, just slides out and can fold in half or all the way out. If you're in row 1, you have a little countertop up here, although it's very clearly marked no stowage. Below that, of course, is where you're going to find the seatback TV screen, and we will take a little look at that entertainment option shortly. Underneath that is a small little shelf for whatever additional items you might have with you in flight. Below that's the footrest, and like I mentioned, row 1 does have a little bit more space since it doesn't have to cram beneath a seat in front of you. Because of that, there is enough space to fit a backpack, although it still stuck out a little bit, so I decided to put it up for most of the flight. And on the right side here is where you'll find the armrest that can be adjustable both up and down, so that if you're sleeping it's a little more level and you can have a slightly wider space to sleep. On your right side here you have 2.5 windows for each seat. The reason I say half here is because that third window is kind of blocked by the storage area that you have over your shoulder. Speaking of that storage area, there is some good space for in-flight items you might have with you, also a water bottle, universal charging port, USB charging port, and the headset plug. And then, as most narrow-body aircraft do, you also have the individual overhead air vents at each seat. And as we just enjoy that view of the wing and the engine of the wonderful 757-200, I want to take another second to look at the amenities that's provided to each passenger in Polaris. First things first, the headphones that's provided to Polaris passengers on any Polaris flight. They're okay. I've had better noise canceling and I've had better comfortability, but I can sleep with these on if I need to. Where United really thrives in business class is the bedding provided by Saks Fifth Avenue. First off is the comforter, which isn't exactly the most substantial, but it's meant to be paired with this, which is more of a throw blanket that's very comfortable, and when used with the comforter, can make you plenty warm and makes the bed extremely comfortable. You also have the very substantial Saks Fifth Ave pillow that's used in bed mode, and honestly is as big as any pillow I would have at home. Perhaps the star of United's bedding, however, is the Polaris Gel Pillow, which is a fantastic memory foam that's super comfortable and when used in conjunction with the Saks Fifth Ave bedding pillow can give that extra little touch to your bedding. This was the first day of the new United Therabody amenity kits as well. I will definitely miss the hard shell away amenity kits as I had great uses for those, and I don't really see myself using this little fanny pack with this giant strap anytime soon. The benefit, however, is that some of the stuff that came inside the kit was slightly nicer in my opinion. I thought the eye mask was a little bit more comfortable than the away eye mask, and what I really found beneficial was that the TheraFace amenities were way better in my opinion than the Sunday Riley amenities that came in the away kits. And the last amenity we were handed out was the pre-departure drink, of which I chose a glass of champagne. Now I throw the lavatory in here because I throw it in every video. However, the drawback of having a narrow-body aircraft on these transatlantic routes is you have a narrow-body aircraft lavatory. It did still have some amenities in there. Interestingly enough, they were still the Sunday Riley amenities from the away kits. Every passenger was given the menu card, which I added to the stash in my seat. One side was home to the wines and champagnes available on board, whereas the other side had the dining options for what looked like our 2 meals on board our flight today. Now to take a quick look through the familiar United in-flight entertainment screen. My favorite part is that it starts off with the schedule for the flight, including when each meal and snack service will be served. Now, I've done plenty of videos covering United and so therefore covered a lot of their entertainment options, so I don't want to spend too long here. What I will say is that they do a great job of having current movies, as they had the new Super Mario movie, the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and more. They also have a wonderful selection like most North American airlines do, and so there's a ton of stuff to choose from in all different categories. With both movies and TV shows, you'll find plenty of different genres, and within each genre, you'll find pages and pages and pages of options. With TV shows, not only will you find all those pages of options, but each TV show has plenty of episodes. Most have full seasons, and some even have multiple seasons. The audio section is kind of fun. They do have the audio mixes, which has all kinds of different genres. They also have a list of podcasts, if that's more your style. But perhaps the greatest thing, which just doesn't exist as much anymore, is the flight deck, where you can listen in to live ATC conversations, and it's something that used to be super normal on airplanes, but doesn't really exist much anymore. They do also have the specific section where you can watch an assortment of concerts and other types of live events. They do have a good selection of games, however, as usual, I didn't end up playing any of these games on my flight. And what I'm sure most parents appreciate is the kids-only area, where they have movies and TV shows specifically suited for those with kids. And I know we've talked about it before, but my favorite thing when you have this big of a selection is when they make it easier to find things. For example, the search feature that they have on board Polaris's product. In addition, something that's popping up more and more is the ability to add things to favorites, which you can do in a couple of ways on board these United in-flight entertainment screens, just making it much easier to find what you're looking for later on in the flight. I also got a chance to check out United's in-flight Wi-Fi service. Now, United has Wi-Fi across almost their entire fleet, with the exception of some outage zones you'll find, especially on transoceanic flights. Now, United's one of the airlines that's been flirting with free Wi-Fi, probably to come soon. However, currently it still has a paid service. If you're a T-Mobile customer, you do get free in-flight connection. You also get free access to in-flight text messaging. For the current point, though, if you're just any other person, you're going to be paying about $19 for a full flight Wi-Fi, or you can buy passes for 1 hour or 2 hours for less than that. Once you do connect, however, one of the best features they have is that you can switch devices. Since you can only use one device at a time unless you purchase a second plan, you do have the ability to switch it to a different device. So if you want to use it on your phone and then move it to your laptop later on to get work done, you have the ability to do so fairly easily. Personally, I'm gonna be kind of sad to see these 757s die off and disappear from the skies. They've been around for quite a while and have become quite a workhorse for a lot of the world. Unfortunately, as new, more efficient aircraft appear, the 757s have slowly been going away. As mentioned previously, United has taken a large order of A321 XLRs that will start replacing these next year, and Delta has a large order of the 737 MAX 10s that should be replacing their 757s coming in the next year or two as well, meaning that we'll largely see a decrease in the 757, possibly towards extinction. But with its lower empty weight and definite overpowered engine, a lot of people like to think of it as the rocket ship of the skies, as it really can take off in less distance and have an insane climb rate. And so while I know a lot of comments on this video are probably going to be about the older product that you find on board and just the plane in general maybe looking a little bit older, I'm just curious to get your guys' thoughts on the 757 and if you guys liked it as a great aircraft that stuck around for quite a while in aviation history. I will say, however, departing northeast out of Newark on the right side of the aircraft is exciting as you get a fantastic view of the Manhattan skyline. Now that we were in the air, it was time to get a little more relaxed. There is no relax preset, so you just kind of hold down the bed mode until it gets to your desired position, or go ahead and adjust each piece individually with the other buttons. If you are going to keep a backpack at your seat, however, I will suggest probably putting it sideways or in the overhead bin, just because you'll see here that my footrest barely clears it. And as we said farewell to the eastern part of the United States and began our transatlantic journey all the way out to Stockholm, our snack service began with a bowl of nuts and a drink service, of which I decided to start with Stella. Then it was time for our meal service, and I decided to go with the vegetarian option mostly because I'm just kind of tired of eating short rib on airplanes, and the barbecue chicken just sounded a little heavy for me at that time. What the vegetarian option came with was stir-fried vegetables with some udon noodles and a Thai-style coconut ginger cream sauce that was fantastic. Also came with a side of prawns. Now personally, what's somewhat disappointing to me across United's international flights is that they've kind of stuck with the COVID style of a one-tray service. Since COVID, other airlines have switched back to their plate-by-plate servings, like American Airlines for example, which serves each course one at a time, and a lot of other Middle East and Asian carriers. However, United seems to be sticking to their one-tray service, and while it might be more efficient, it definitely isn't as pleasing from the customer perspective. What has made its resplendent return since COVID is the famous Polaris dessert cart, which has a number of different dessert drink options, in addition to also offering their ice cream sundaes. On this flight was a peach blueberry tart and an assorted cheese plate as well. I, of course, have to go with the ice cream sundae option, which I've recently found that there's some mixed opinions about. However, the entire top shelf of the cart is toppings, and so you can kind of add whatever you want to it and make it your own. I thought it was a wonderful way to wrap up my meal as we made our transatlantic crossing. And now that the meal had wrapped up, they came by to give every passenger a water bottle to keep at their seat throughout the night. They also came through with more offerings throughout the flight for those that finished the water bottles they were originally handed. Now that the cabin was dark and everything had been cleaned up, however, my first priority was setting up my bed and getting comfortable. I will say the mountain of bedding sure makes this bed comfortable, with the gel pillow, adding on that throw blanket underneath, then adding, of course, the comforter on top of that, finished off with the large Saks Fifth Avenue pillow. You can give yourself possibly one of the most comfortable beds in the sky. The only drawback is that there's no mattress pad on flights this short. On United flights that are 12 hours or longer, you can ask the crew for a mattress pad, and it makes the bed even more comfortable. I will say that I could definitely see this footwell probably being smaller in the other rows and maybe less comfortable. However, if you're in row 1, I found there to be plenty of space to sleep on your back, your front, your side, pretty much conducive to all kinds of sleepers. Of course, the main drawback of a 2-2 setup just being the fact that if you do have to get up to use the restroom, you do have to climb over the person on the aisle seat. I decided to settle in for just a little bit of sleep on this flight, as the cabin was dark and my bed was made. I only got a few hours of sleep. I honestly wasn't all that tired. When I woke up, there's about 4 hours remaining in the flight, so I decided to get my laptop out and get a little bit of work done. If you do get snacky throughout the flight, there are plenty of options that you'll find up in the galley. They keep a snack basket, they also keep a tray of different assorted fruits, and the flight attendants can also prep you whatever you'd like to drink. I decided to get a nice cup of coffee, some Dot's pretzels, and some nice little energy bar type thing that I had never heard of before. They also placed another one of those baskets just on the countertop next to seat 1C for those passengers that maybe slept through the bulk of the flight. And once we were only about a couple hours outside of Stockholm, the first sign of the sunrise had popped up outside the window, and I tried to get whatever shots I could of it without illuminating the entire cabin for those still trying to sleep. The more the sun came up, I ended up kind of shielding my window with my comforter to stop all that light from flooding the cabin. Now, there is no mood lighting in the 757, but they do have a dimming feature, and so the lights came up slightly, signaling that it was breakfast time. Most passengers decided to sleep through breakfast, as these overnight flights from the East Coast can be a little bit shorter, and people typically want to maximize their sleep. I opted to go with their French toast, which had a nice little berry sauce on top of it, came with a side of a croissant, some fresh fruit, and some Greek yogurt. To go along with that, I also decided to get a nice glass of green tea. By the time those who wanted breakfast had eaten it, we were only about an hour outside of Stockholm, meaning that the sun had almost completely risen, and we had commenced our descent into the airport.
and welcome to Stockholm. This local time is 7:27 a.m. We will be taxiing for a few minutes, so please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened and all of your carry-on items stowed.
Now that we get to the final thoughts, we first off have to address the white elephant in the room, which is that a 2-2 business class is obviously less than ideal. We could get into the debate of if a 1-1 reverse herringbone could work, but for the length of routes in this aircraft, it's plenty fine in a 2-2 in my opinion. Personally, I'm just glad they have the same seat itself as they do in the normal wide-body Polaris suites, as it's extremely comfortable. I just wish you could get slippers and mattress pads on any of these international business class flights. The Boeing 757 is a legit rocket ship of an airplane with overpowered engines and lower basic empty weight, allowing it to take off in less distance and climb at an astonishing 3,200 feet per minute, which has led it to become many people's personal favorite airplanes and an even better use of Rolls-Royce than any car could ever be. Unfortunately, production ended about 30 years ago, and no viable replacement has been made since leading airplanes upkeeping the fleet to serve niche markets. They mostly had couch-style domestic seats, but since airlines like United and Delta were using them for so much transatlantic services, both airlines decided to install lie-flat seats. As mentioned previously, by no means is the 757 the flagship of the fleet, but instead a way to serve smaller markets around the world. For example, there's destinations like Edinburgh, Scotland, which were previously seasonal, but using the 757 means that they can have less empty seats and are able to serve it year-round. I'd guess that the new, more efficient aircraft arriving will mean that new markets can be served, similar to Scandinavian Airlines opening their Gothenburg to New York flight, which really wouldn't have been profitable in a wide-body aircraft. I will be sad to see the 757 go away once these newer aircraft arrive, since it's been such a workhorse around the world. But it opened up a very specific market and paved the road for these new A321XLRs and 737 MAX 10s. So as always, I'm excited to watch one chapter of aviation close and the next chapter begin. Let me know your thoughts on all of this, but until next week, safe travels, and I will see y'all next time.